There are some wounds that no one can see. The deepest pain is not when strangers reject you. It is when the family you sacrificed everything for treats you like you never belonged. Amara thought marriage would give her a new home, a loving husband, and a family that would embrace her as their own. Instead, every sunrise brought a new humiliation. Every meal came with fresh insults, and every night ended with silent tears she could not explain to anyone. Her mother-in-law never accepted her. Her relatives mocked her. But the greatest heartbreak of all was that the only man who had promised to protect her stood quietly beside those destroying her. Then one rainy afternoon, everything fell apart. In front of neighbors, friends, and complete strangers, Amara was thrown out of the house with nothing but a small travel bag and the clothes she was wearing. Her cries meant nothing. Her explanations were ignored. Even the husband she loved looked away as if she had become a stranger overnight. Everyone believed that was the end of her story. No one knew that, within the next few minutes, a single black SUV would drive into that compound, carrying a secret powerful enough to expose every lie, humble every proud heart, and change the lives of everyone who had humiliated her forever. This is the unforgettable story of how the woman they called worthless became the reason an entire family fell to their knees. If you are already curious to know what happened, do well to like and subscribe to this channel, because what you are about to watch will leave you speechless. The rain soaked Amara's clothes as she stood frozen beside the gate, unsure whether to keep walking or look back one last time. Every drop of rain felt like another painful reminder that the people she called family had rejected her without giving her a chance to defend herself. The neighbors whispered among themselves, while some secretly recorded the embarrassing scene with their phones. Deep inside her heart, she wondered how the same husband, who once promised never to leave her side, could watch her suffer without saying a single word. But the arrival of the mysterious SUV was about to change everything. The driver's door opened slowly, and an elderly man dressed in spotless white stepped out with quiet confidence. His face carried the calmness of someone who had seen both great joy and great pain in life. Without saying a word to anyone else, he walked straight toward Amara and gently held an umbrella over her head. The compound became so quiet that even the rain seemed to pause, because nobody could understand why such a respected man would ignore everyone else and stand beside the woman they had just humiliated, until he finally spoke her name. "Amara," the elderly man said softly, "I have been looking for you." Mama Ngozi's confident smile disappeared instantly. Emeka frowned in confusion, wondering how a man everyone in the state respected could know his wife. Amara herself looked completely surprised because she had never seen the man before. As dozens of unanswered questions filled everyone's mind, the old man smiled gently and said there was something her late father had asked him to do many years ago, a promise he could no longer keep secret. Mama Ngozi immediately stepped forward, forcing a smile that fooled no one. She welcomed the chief into the house and pretended nothing had happened only moments earlier. But Chief Okonkwo refused to move. He looked around at the gathered neighbors before calmly asking one simple question: why was my late friend's daughter standing alone in the rain? No one answered. Emeka lowered his eyes in shame, while Mama Ngozi searched desperately for a lie that would protect her reputation. Yet the truth was already beginning to expose itself. Chief Okonkwo slowly removed a sealed brown envelope from his leather briefcase and held it high for everyone to see. He explained that Amara's late father had entrusted him with documents that were only to be delivered when his daughter faced her darkest moment. Mama Ngozi laughed nervously, believing the envelope contained nothing important. But as the chief broke the seal and unfolded the first document, his expression changed completely. He looked directly at Emeka before saying, "Young man, Before this day ends, your entire life will never be the same again. And the first shocking page left everyone speechless. The first page was not a will, as everyone expected. It was an old partnership agreement signed over 25 years earlier by Chief Okonkwo and Amara's late father. The chief raised the document for everyone to see before saying, "Your father was not a poor man. He invested everything he had to save my business when it was collapsing." The neighbors looked at one another in disbelief, while Mama Ngozi's confident posture slowly disappeared. Emeka could not understand why Amara had never mentioned such an important part of her family history, until the chief revealed the painful promise that had kept her silent all these years. Chief Okonkwo turned toward Amara with kindness in his eyes. "Your father made you promise never to boast about wealth or seek help from my family, unless your life depended on it. He wanted people to love you for your character, not for your background." Tears rolled down Amara's cheeks as memories of her father's final days rushed back into her heart. She had honored that promise, even when people mocked her, insulted her, and treated her like she was nothing. The neighbors who had laughed only minutes earlier suddenly felt ashamed, but the greatest shock was still hidden inside the chief's briefcase. Mama Ngozi quickly regained her composure and forced herself to laugh. "Chief, with all due respect, old stories cannot change today's reality. This girl has brought nothing into my son's life except problems." Before anyone could respond, Chief Okonkwo calmly opened another document. "This is not an old story," he replied. "This concerns today." His voice became firmer than before. "6 months ago, I transferred something into Amara's name because I believed the time had finally come." Emeka's heartbeat quickened as every eye fixed on the second document. And one sentence was enough to leave the entire compound breathless. The document confirmed that Amara owned 40% of a successful manufacturing company managed by Chief Okonkwo's family. The yearly profits were worth more money than anyone in the compound had ever imagined. Gasps filled the air as neighbors struggled to believe what they had just heard. Mama Ngozi almost lost her balance, while Emeka stared at his wife as if he were seeing her for the first time. The woman they had called useless had quietly become one of the wealthiest young women in the state. But Amara's next words surprised everyone even more. Amara slowly wiped her tears and looked at the people who had humiliated her. There was no anger in her voice, only deep sadness. "I never wanted money to define who I am," she said quietly. "I only wanted a family that would love me." Her words pierced every heart in the compound. Even the neighbors who had mocked her could no longer lift their heads. Emeka finally stepped forward, reaching out with trembling hands, but before he could speak, Chief Okonkwo gently raised his hand and said, "Not so fast, young man. There is one final truth your wife has hidden from you." And Emeka suddenly feared he was about to lose far more than his marriage. Emeka's hands slowly dropped to his sides as fear tightened around his chest. He had expected the chief to talk about money or property, but the sadness in the old man's eyes suggested something much deeper. Chief Okonkwo looked at Amara, silently asking for permission. She closed her eyes for a moment before giving a gentle nod. Everyone stood motionless, sensing that a truth buried for years was finally about to surface, and no one was prepared for what they were about to hear. Chief Okonkwo spoke slowly. 3 months ago, Amara came to my office. Emeka frowned because his wife had never mentioned such a visit. She did not ask for money. She did not ask for a house or a car. She came to beg me not to interfere in her marriage. Amara lowered her head as tears rolled down her cheeks. She believed that if she remained patient, love would eventually return to her home. A heavy silence fell across the compound as everyone realized they had mistaken kindness for weakness. But the chief had not finished telling the story. The chief reached into his briefcase one last time and brought out a neatly folded hospital report. Emeka's heart began to race the moment he saw his wife's name on the document. Chief Okonkwo handed it to him without saying a word. As Emeka unfolded the paper, His eyes widened in horror. The report confirmed that Amara was expecting their first child. His hands began to shake uncontrollably because the date on the report showed she had discovered the pregnancy weeks before she was thrown out of the house, and she had chosen to keep the joyful news a surprise for her husband. The paper slipped from Emeka's fingers and landed in the muddy water below. He staggered backward, unable to breathe. Every cruel word he had allowed his mother to speak echoed inside his mind like thunder. While Amara had been carrying their unborn child, he had watched silently as she was pushed into the rain like a stranger. His knees suddenly became too weak to support him, and for the first time since his marriage began, the proud young man fell to the ground before his wife. But he still feared his apology had come far too late. With tears streaming down his face, Emeka reached for Amara's hand. His voice trembled as he admitted that he had failed both her and the family they were about to build. He confessed that he had spent years trying to please everyone except the woman who had loved him without conditions. Even the neighbors began wiping tears from their eyes as they watched the broken man beg for another chance. Amara looked into his eyes, remembering every painful night she had cried herself to sleep, every insult she had silently endured, and every prayer she had whispered before dawn. Then she took one slow step forward, leaving everyone wondering whether she was about to forgive him or walk away forever. For what felt like an eternity, Amara said nothing. The only sound was the soft rain falling on the roof and the distant cry of a baby from a neighboring compound. She looked at the man kneeling before her, the same man she had loved with all her heart, the same man who had stood silent while she was publicly disgraced. Then she looked at Mama Ngozi, whose proud face was now covered with tears of regret. Amara finally spoke in a calm voice. Forgiveness is easy to speak about, but trust is much harder to rebuild. Her words settled heavily on every heart gathered there, and Emeka realized that one apology would never be enough. Mama Ngozi slowly walked toward Amara. For the first time in many years, the proud woman removed the expensive wrapper covering her shoulders and placed it on the wet ground before her daughter-in-law. In Igbo tradition, everyone understood what that gesture meant. It was not just an apology, it was a public surrender of pride. With a trembling voice, she confessed that she had judged Amara because she believed poverty meant weakness. She admitted that jealousy had blinded her whenever she saw how much peace and kindness Amara brought into the family. The neighbors could hardly believe the words coming from the woman who had always acted untouchable. But one final confession shook the compound even more. Tears flowing freely, Mama Ngozi admitted that she had secretly spread false stories about Amara to relatives because she wanted her son to marry the daughter of a wealthy politician. She believed such a marriage would bring status and influence to the family. Every lie she told had slowly poisoned Emeka's mind until he stopped trusting the woman who had never betrayed him. Emeka covered his face in shame as he realized he had allowed another person's voice to become louder than his wife's honesty. The crowd stood in complete silence, stunned by the depth of the deception. And Emeka knew that from this day forward, he alone would be responsible for repairing what he had broken. Chief Okonkwo stepped forward one last time. Real wealth, he said, is not measured by the houses you build or the money in your account. It is measured by how you treat people when they have nothing to offer you. His words pierced every heart present. He then turned to Amara and handed her the car keys to the black SUV. "My daughter," he said with a warm smile, "whether you choose to stay or leave is your decision alone. No one will ever control your life again." Amara looked at the keys, then at her husband, knowing that the next choice she made would define the future of her unborn child, and every eye waited for her answer. Ending. Amara slowly walked toward the SUV, leaving everyone breathless. She opened the door, placed her small travel bag inside, and stood silently for a few moments. Then she turned back. She walked to Emeka, gently lifted him from his knees, and looked him in the eyes. "I forgive you," she said softly, "not because you deserve it today, but because I refuse to carry bitterness into my child's future." Tears flowed freely as Emeka embraced her with a gratitude he had never felt before. Amara then looked at Mama Ngozi and added, "Respect cannot be demanded. It is earned through love, honesty, and kindness." From that day forward, the family rebuilt their home, not with wealth, but with humility, truth, and forgiveness. Years later, whenever people in the village spoke about that rainy afternoon, they no longer remembered the humiliation. They remembered the woman whose quiet strength transformed an entire family, and her story became a reminder that true character always shines brightest after the darkest storm.